You know, when you think of an earthquake, you probably picture something fast, right? A sudden, violent shake, and then it's over. But what if I told you there's an earthquake out there that started more than 2 centuries ago, and, get this, it's still going on today?
I know, it sounds kind of nuts, right? It totally messes with how we think about this stuff. How on earth can a single event from the age of steamships still be causing tremors in our modern world? Well, that is the exact mystery we're going to dive into.
Okay, so to really get what's happening today, we've got to go back, way back. We're heading to the American frontier. The year is 1811. Just try to picture it. This was a totally different time. The US was still super young, and these newfangled steam-powered boats were just starting to chug along the big rivers. And it's right here, in what seemed like a peaceful, quiet part of the country, that the planet decided to unleash something absolutely incredible. And here's the thing. This wasn't just one and done. No, this was a whole series of massive quakes, one after another. We now call it the New Madrid sequence. We're talking for months. From the end of 1811 all the way into 1812, the center of the continent was just getting rocked over and over again. Then, something happened that just sounds impossible, like something out of a myth. The shaking was so intense, the land itself literally buckled and warped, and it actually forced the Mississippi River, the mighty Mississippi, to flow backward. Can you even imagine the kind of power it would take to do that? Okay, so that was then, right? A huge, dramatic piece of history. But here's the crazy part. The story didn't end there. Not even close. The shaking, it never really stopped. And we can still feel the echoes of it today.
So how exactly are we still feeling it? Well, it all comes down to this number, up to 30%. And you're probably thinking, 30% of what? What could that possibly have to do with an earthquake from 200 years ago? Well, it's the key to a pretty wild scientific theory. See, that same area, the New Madrid seismic zone, is still very much active. And geologists now think that up to 30% of the little quakes happening there right now, they aren't new at all. They're aftershocks. Aftershocks from 1811. Yeah, you heard that right.
So the big question is, how is that even possible? How can an aftershock last for 2 entire centuries? The best way to wrap your head around it is to think of the Earth's crust like a giant, slow-moving battery. Now, the official scientific name for this is long-term aftershocks. Basically, after a massive main shock, that's the big one in 1811, not all the stress just disappears. The Earth's crust is still settling, still adjusting, and it keeps releasing that leftover energy. Not for a few days or weeks, but for centuries.
So think of that 1811 quake as the huge initial power surge. But the battery, it didn't drain all the way. There was still juice left. And ever since then, it's been slowly releasing that leftover power, one tiny burst at a time. And those bursts, those are the aftershocks.
Let's walk through how this whole geologic battery thing works. Step 1 is charging. For thousands of years, massive stress builds up in the crust. Then comes the discharge. That's the 1811-1812 quakes, the main event where all that energy is let go. But crucially, some residual power gets left behind. And for the last 200+ years, that power has been on a slow drain, just trickling out as these aftershocks that we can still detect.
Okay, so this is super cool science for sure, but why does it actually matter to us? What's the big picture here? Well, it all comes down to completely changing how we think about time.
Think about it. We live our lives on a human time scale, right? We think in terms of years, decades, our own lifespans. But the planet? It's on a whole other clock. Geologic time. On that scale, a couple of centuries is nothing. It's like a few minutes. And an event from way back then can still be an active, unfolding process right now.
So, what does all this teach us? A few really mind-blowing things, actually. First, the past isn't always in the past. Sometimes it's literally, physically shaking our present. It's also a pretty humbling reminder that the planet works on a scale that is just way bigger than a human lifetime. And it just goes to show you that there are these hidden slow-motion events happening all the time right under our feet.
And that kind of leaves us with one last big thought. These New Madrid aftershocks are an amazing example of history that isn't really history yet. It's still happening. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other ancient echoes, what other old events are still quietly shaping the world we see around us today?